Save that. All right. Do we have anybody yet? We've got one viewer. All right. Hello. Cool. So I'm just going to go ahead and start over with a little spiel. Sorry for whoever was here for a minute. But yeah, we're going to go get rolling on the stream. And today we're going to be reading chapter 3 from, or 3, I guess, from that hand. 3 from my young adult novel Introduction Events, which goes live in about 2 weeks. Or really about a week and a half at this point. So that's cool. As you can see, there is a content warning where self-harm is discussed in this chapter. It is not as kind of dwelled upon as it was in the first chapter, just so you know. But as with all things, my aim with including things that are dealing with this topic was never ever to glorify the process and actually to work toward healing from it. So hopefully that will be exemplified throughout the novel, and I hope that it does not cause a problem for anyone viewing. Another fun thing, well, I guess it's hard tone shift here, but before I get rolling, tonight I'm reading not only from my book, but from like the actual copy of the digital version of my book that backers from the Kickstarter will be receiving very soon. On October 4th is when it goes live to all the Kickstarter backers, and then October 11th for everyone else. So without any further ado, let's read chapter 3, Leigh. Spirited Away will always be the best Miyazaki film. I don't care what the yahoos at the JCS think. Celis lowered his head with a mock serious expression as we entered the school's parking lot. Oh man, My Neighbor Totoro is a classic and will always take top billing from me. Leigh, love you, babe, but they are all classics. That's what makes Miyazaki. The debate over Hayao Miyazaki film, which was the greatest, got rehashed almost every Thursday afternoon at the Japanese Cultural Society. That meeting was one of the 2 reasons why Thursdays were hands down the best day of the week. Bless her heart, Miss Evans started the club to study the amazingly rich and beautiful culture of Japan. It had, however, turned out to be the place where most of us just argue about anime and manga. I scrunched up my face with a sour expression. And don't call me babe, it feels weird. Bah! Celis stuck his tongue out at me and wafted a hand back and forth dismissively. How about, sweetie honey lumpkin face? Oddly, that might be a better choice, I responded in confusion. Where in the world did you come up with that one? Not the slightest clue. He reached out an arm to offer a side hug. One of my favorite things about Celis was that he always respected my weirdness about physical space. Even with us walking close together and him knowing I'd accept the hug, he still didn't touch me until I leaned into him. Celis squeezed me tight and leaned his head against me. We stopped walking and stood in the middle of an empty school parking lot for a few seconds. It was nice. He was safe. I closed my eyes and welcomed the moment of peace inside my head. How many of the origami roses do you think that we were able to make before homecoming? I asked, after opening my eyes to the barren parking lot. Celis's car was the only one left on this side. He and I always stayed late to help clean up after the meeting, and Miss Evans parked in the teacher's lot. Dunno, Celis shrugged. He moved his arm from its perch around my shoulder. Can probably do at least 10 a night. Miss Evans said we've got, 50 or 60 pre-orders so far? The JCS was making origami roses and corsages for the homecoming as a fundraiser. Sorry. This is the first year we'd offered it, and Serimessa was not known for its acceptance of new traditions. It was most certainly not open to different ways of life, yet another thing which set Celis and I apart. Thankfully, no one had figured out where either of us lay on that particular spectrum. Yep, I'm honestly really pissed about the reception so far. Didn't expect it to go over this. Really, sorry. Total different tone shift there. Yep, I'm honestly really pleased with the reception so far. Didn't expect it to go over so well. Beats the crap out of mums, that's for sure. You aren't kidding. I really don't get the obsession Texans have with mums. Those flowers are gaudy as hell. Anyways, I could knock all of those pre-orders out on my own within the next week if I had to, Celis reassured me. You shouldn't have to do all of them by yourself. I'll get some, and Gary's getting decent with his folding. Not sure he'll be in at least, if he and at least one other person be good enough to make presentable ones. I mean, sure, Celis shrugged. Homecoming's still a few weeks away, so we probably spend next week's meeting with tryouts or whatever to see who makes the best ones. Let's get this all nailed down then, okay? We should head to the shop, though. If we don't hurry, we'll be late. What's she gonna do? Fire me? Pfft, yeah, that ain't gonna happen. We are giving my mom a night off, and she is not going to give that up for me getting there 10 minutes late. Maybe so, I squirmed in place. I just don't want to do that to her. Can we just get going? Working with you over there helps me get out of my head, and I can already feel myself slipping inside there. You got it, sweetie honey lumpkin face. His smile helped hold back the darkness I felt my mind swarming toward. I stared at my bracelets and wondered if I'd realized about that about myself. I could have avoided if what went down. I'd been so mired in the popularity trap of my former life. I was on my own, kind of ignorant back then. Thanks, Celis. I leaned my head on his shoulder and took a breath. He kissed me lightly on the top of the head. Let's get out of here. Sure thing. Do the mute for water thing. About the second scene. It didn't happen every week, but my stupid brain always had to do its best to ruin my good mood after the JCS meeting. Celis knew the deal and played each trip by ear. My angel of best friend didn't say anything or turn on the music unless I initiated. Most weeks we'd ride in silence and I'd stare out the window at nothing. What invariably sent my mind spiraling into the abyss was how much I didn't understand why Miss Tisha would want to spend each Thursday night at the Spur. Sure, she only took off one night a week and wanted to spend that around adults, but the Spur was full of people who spent their entire lives in this dinky town and never got past the glory days of high school. Adult versions of my asshole ex-boyfriend, Chase Pierce. So they spent their nights there getting drunk and retelling tales of their best days of their lives. Assuming Chase stuck around, he would still have a ton of money from his dad and would surely inherit the car dealerships. He'd go to the Spurs so people would tell him he was still the best thing ever. Chase would continue to revel in constant adulation milked from everyone around him. He was a real-life vampire living off of the praise of his followers. Thinking about Chase always made the lines on my arms and hips itch. They always wanted more. New additions to let some of the pain drain out. It never worked for long, and I always regretted giving myself a new line almost immediately. The process of cleaning up after helped some too. It was cathartic in its own right, but never made the voices calling out any quieter. My mind spun from Miss Tisha taking her goofy cowboy hat and off the wall to leave for the Spur to Chase to what that bastard and his cronies did to my life, and how stupid and baseless their lies were, and how little that mattered in the end. To the secret lines adorning my body. The cycle played out over and over and over again until I felt the car stop and Celis cut the engine. Sometimes the lack of vibration from the motor was enough to snap me out, but not always. The voices from the white lines were especially strong that day, especially because of what that prick Peyton said earlier in the week. That jerk probably even thought he was doing me a favor. What an ass. Celis's hand lightly touching my shoulder, made me practically jump out of my skin before I realized what I was doing. I had my hands splayed out and ready to scrape his face off with the chipped polish of my black nails. They weren't long, but they were enough. Thankfully, I came to my senses before doing anything I'd regret. Poor Celis looked terrified. You okay, Leigh? He asked in a quiet, concerned tone. Oh, shit. I gasped and covered my mouth with the hand that almost disfigured him. I'm so sorry, Celis. I am so sorry. I'm fine here. Don't worry about me. I'm just scared you're going to lose it on someone in there. No, I was just a little extra inside my head. I'll be okay once we get inside, I promise. If you say so, sweetie honey lumpkin face. I shook my head at him. That helped me banish the last of the spiraling voices. Scene 3. We landed Rockstar parking, if the school grounds coffee shop had such a thing. Miss Tisha preferred employees park around back to give the best spots to the customers, but Celis couldn't care less. He figured if he was giving up his evening, he'd park wherever he wanted. It was an old argument between him and his mom, and I stayed out of it. Gravel crunched beneath my feet as I walked onto the patio of the old house Miss Tisha had converted into the most popular coffee shop in town. The mother and son had moved to our podunk town 6 or 8 months previously. What convinced them to land here was beyond me, though Miss Tisha got the money for school grounds from her husband's life insurance after he unexpectedly passed in a car accident in Louisiana. Celis said that he'd lived his entire life in that small Louisiana house, but his mom couldn't handle living there anymore. Louisiana's loss was our gain. I gained a best friend and the town gained a fantastic place for high school kids to hang out. They got here a few months after everything really went south with me. Celis hadn't known me in my previous life. He only knows what I became after the rumors were all into regular circulation. I was still a mess, but hadn't started finding myself in things I'd previously eschewed. Things like anime and YouTube covers of metal songs. Perhaps that was why it was easy for us to be friends. Most people kept a pretty strong dividing line between who I was before and who I became. Even my parents did to an extent, but they attributed way too much of the change to their divorce and Dad's very hasty remarriage. Those events were years apart, so it didn't track at all, but I wasn't about to disabuse them of their notions with the truth. Celis pushed open the front door for me. I noticed 3 or 4 tables were already in use and for the other major benefits school grounds offered. Miss Tisha's brilliant gimmick was to offer free drinks to any student who offered tutoring services at the shop. She more than made up for the deal with drinks brought by people in need of free tutoring. It didn't hurt that her homemade snacks and pastries were also very well appreciated by everyone. I waved at some of the regular tutors. A couple were from my high school, Edmonds, but a boy from our rival school, Pensington, was also there. Most of the tutoring didn't cross school boundaries, but sometimes there'd be a scab who learned from the other side. I expected there'd be there would be fewer people accepting help from the enemy the closer we got to homecoming, but things would calm back down after Christmas break. Son, Miss Tisha said in a strong dose of side eye at Celis, what have I told you about parking out front? Um, that would be like me working here on Thursday nights, so you can have a break from all this. Do I hear a tone in there, son of mine? No, Mom. Celis rolled his eyes. Oh no, I did not see you roll your eyes at me. I'm sure you didn't. He turned to me for support. I have no part in this. I raised my hands and backed behind the counter. I'm going to get my apron on and let you two just figure all that out. Wise woman. Miss Tisha smiled my way. Her side eye returned when she looked back at her son. Marcellus Washington. If I didn't have the need to socialize like a human being with other adults, whoo boy, it'd be unfortunate for you. As it is. Come over here. Give your mom some sugar before I get out of here. Celis kissed her on the cheek, and she snuck a bear hug around her squirming 17-year-old. She mussed his twists, which he fixed as soon as she let go. You're such a handsome boy, but I just don't get some of these fashion choices. Like, what's up with your shirt today? Why would a rooster wear a necktie? That doesn't make any sense to me. Don't worry about it, Mom. Besides, it's a hen, not a rooster. There was no way I was going to explain his hen tie shirt to his mother. That wasn't going to happen. I guess that's some sort of important distinction, but I just don't get it. She snuck in one more hug and grabbed her cowboy hat off the rack near the door. Your kids close up the normal time, and I'll see you at home a little after that. Right, Celis? Sure, Mom. Celis rolled his eyes again. I was thinking about closing up now, but I guess I'll wait till around the normal time. Don't you sass me. Miss Tisha's shot back, but we heard her smile. And make that girl one of your tasty concoctions. She looks paler than usual. She waved and jauntily stepped out of the door without waiting for a response. All right. Well, that's the end of chapter 3. I hope you enjoyed it. As per usual, the stream is going to be uploaded onto the YouTubes and will also be available here on Twitch later on as well. And so if you're watching this on YouTubes, you will see, you can say, well, whatever. That was a terrible joke. I'm going to cut that in post, but not actually. Anywho, I hope you have an awesome rest of your night, and I'm planning on picking up with chapter 4 next week. So, and by the way, chapter 4 is one of my favorites. It's the introduction of another really, really cool character, and you get to see a whole lot more Miss Tisha, and I hope you come back and we get to enjoy it together. Goodness, excuse me. Well, have a good night.